The Commonwealth Network is the name of something that doesn't really exist outside of just a community functioning level. The Commonwealth Network is what we call a nose-to-tail solution for scaling regeneration by keeping it small. Our role within the Savory Network and regenerative agriculture, we're in these conversations on a weekly basis, right? How do we scale regeneration? Is regenerative ag something that can be scaled? These are large questions. Through our work in the wildland, we found that the eradication of control, right, is actually in many ways the application of community function from a microclimate perspective. It's the idea that community emergence happens in microclimates, right? And that through the understanding of these microclimates interrelating and depending on each other, they become the whole of a beautiful and resilient functioning community of an ecosystem. Commonwealth is a nose-to-tail solution working with regenerative farms, commercial farms, homesteads, family farms to bring regeneration back down to the community to then scale it. It's the idea that collaboration is the scaling mechanism. We don't need larger regenerative farms, right? We need more smaller regenerative farms, right? We just need more farms. And in that understanding of seeing the regenerative movement scaling as something by keeping it small, by working at the community level, we found that working within the community, actually building an organization that enhances community function by pulling the genius out of the community, highlighting it, and then bring it back to the community, right? So taking something that's already a part of the community is the result itself. What if we can actually transfer waste from one area of the community to abundance in another? And so we're working with dairies to take these calves out of the system that are originally going to feedlots in the markets and the commercial agricultural production model. And we're pulling these calves out and we're bringing them to regenerative farms who are lacking in animal impact. Right? The idea of this calf donation system is the idea that to regenerate is to have hooves on the soil. We need hooves on the soil. And most regenerative farmers are not just underfunded from a monetary perspective, but they're underfunded from a living capital perspective.
The small dairy, the celebration of it, which we've lost, like in the West, is just gone. And man, what a thing it would be to see the small dairies, that resurgence here, which brings in respect for the cow, brings in respect for the food that you're producing, brings in respect for the grass, the care and dedication to the landscape. That still exists in places in the world, and we've lost it here. And so like Hillside is this huge plug for me culturally that allows me to kind of tiptoe and experience what it must have been like. Spinning out the calves into this program, it's like the thought is that these cows are going out and they're the heirs of the resurgence, and they're going into a world-class grassland management group with Savory and one of their hubs. I mean, we couldn't ask for a better place for our byproduct, if you will, of milking, which is 50 to 70 calves a year from a herd, rather than send them or have farmers that, they don't know what to do with them. They go to a feedlot. Now they're going to a grassland management system that's global. It doesn't get any better than that.
These are the calves that are going to be headed to our Virginia program with our Savory relationship. So all the calves you guys see here are actually headed there. They're all old enough. We raised them specifically for this program. So it's a really neat program. Every time a calf is born, we no longer have that fear of where are they going to go, what are we going to do with them. Instead, I love watching them thrive. It's a really exciting thing that we do.
And so these calves will actually percolate through our system as we infuse other farms in our community within our network to truly actually fulfill the regenerative power of their landscape. And now the Commonwealth has many different facets. There's education and trainings and consulting and ongoing mentorship, right? The acquisition of means and mentorship and education, that's the nose, right, of the animal. The tail is Savory's land to market and EOV, Ecological Outcome Verification program, where farmers looking to transition or to scale, they might not have markets, local markets, at this time to be able to finance that scaling. So just because you can raise 100 more cattle doesn't mean you can sell 100 more cattle. So farms that are transitioning from commercial to regenerative, farms that are currently regenerative, that are seeking to scale, farms in our network that have access to more land, but they don't have access to more animals or market. We come in, we can infuse their farm with animals and provide them through Savory's land to market EOV system access to a larger market. And in that way, it is nose to tail.
Yeah, I mean, there's sacrifice. There's economic sacrifice, obviously. There's time sacrifice. Even what we're doing here now, we're choosing, and we're just attached to these animals like you can't believe, right? Which might be unusual for dairy farmers. So just knowing that they're going to this place where they're not going to be treated harshly, that they're going to be in a good system, it just makes us feel better. It makes us be able to sleep at night. It closes the loop for us all along, the difficult part. And I would say this to any dairy farmer who's compassionate about this, is what happens to those calves? That's what anybody who's anti-dairy will ask you. What happens to those calves? And this gave us an answer. That's a good one.
Mainstream regenerative agricultural rhetoric, we push and we see these words that also push for increased diversity, right? You have these words that's in biosphere, biodiversity, diversity, resilience, succession. We use these words maybe too much. At their base is a misunderstanding, in my opinion, of the foundation of community, or maybe even the word community itself. To say I'm pushing for biodiversity is to say that I'm standing on top of an ecosystem and I'm pushing it in a direction. We don't really think we're standing on top of anything. We are the ecosystem, and we progress through the ecosystem. We succeed through the ecosystem, going for resilience via uniform diversity. But we are as much a part of this ecosystem. The idea of community is not something that we create. We foster it, we nurture it. So the essence of community is not to manage it, it's not to create it, it's not to enrich environments with abundant communities that operate as non-interdependent parts. You are the ecosystem. You are one of the parts. Better said, you're one of the aspects in this interconnected whole that is life. And once you see yourself placed not above life, not a director of life, but life itself, right? You realize that the act of becoming is the act of the regenerative farmer. And if I can go this far, the act of becoming is the act of life itself, right? We can't nurture life if we are not life. We are life because we first become it. We nurture life because we are life itself. We are not operators over ecosystems. We are not nurturing ecosystem abundance or regeneration. Resilience is diversity in motion, but we're not ushering in resilience. We are the diversity in motion, and therefore it is resilient. We're here in central Virginia, Appomattox County, with these calves. We're dropping it off on one of our network farms, Purple Mockingbird Farm. They're an amazing husband and wife operation. We're standing in the clear cut that they own. They bought a clear cut and they planted a house on it, and they're building fence lines around it, trying to use animal impact to regenerate a very degraded environment. Come on, guys. Rodeo.
I don't know that we'd be able to purchase, 6, 7 steers, whatever we got here, 7 calves right off the bat the first year like this. It would have been probably impossible. So it's a huge, and you can see by looking at our pastures that they're definitely in need of some animal impact and some help. So
yeah.
It's amazing to be able to sort of just get going so quickly.
Well, I think one with just being able to get started with the calves, we've been able to kind of leap ahead about probably 3 to 4 years in our normal plan, or where we were planning on being at this point in time, work out. So working with a hub, and being able to kind of work together as a community, and you're not trying to build up the entire market from the beginning up, or from the ground up. So it definitely helps a ton.
In the art of mushroom farming, the word inoculation is always used, and it's the idea that you have a substrate, you have a medium that is open, right, to receiving cultures, living cultures, fungal networks, right, that already exist. And so inoculation is a term that means a lot to the Commonwealth Network, because we're not recreating wealth, right? We're not raising capital to go build a system to solve climate change. We are the system, and the community, right, is the wealth itself. And so what we're trying to do is redefine what wealth is. And so we see this system, this calf donation system, from a dairy, a regenerative dairy, a grass-fed dairy that is seeking to expand their impact all the way through to Purple Mockingbird, a farm in our network. We see this as the inoculation of a life already living, right? These calves are the fungal network. Purple Mockingbird is a substrate. They're the maple logs, right? The oak logs ready to receive these fungal spores to grow mushrooms. Right? And so in this context, we're not growing mushrooms, we're growing soil, and we're reducing the amount of carbon in the air by sequestering in the soil. We're producing a living wage for farmers in our region, and we're producing cleaner air, cleaner water, faster mineral cycles. I mean, the abundance occurring here, even in the last 30 minutes, it's awesome, right? This is a dead, degrading land, and we're inoculating it with life. Working as a hub of the Savory Institute, we have the complete creative ability to work within a very decentralized context. The understanding that community function, to work, it needs to start at the community level. Right? The Savory Institute is a decentralized nodal network of regenerative and holistically framed operators all across the world. Some in agriculture, some in business, some in education, and we all work according to our own and individual contexts. But we work according to the context of our communities. And I mean that from an agricultural perspective, and I mean that from a social perspective. right? The modern diversity, the modern need in our culture for seeing all life as equal, all life as having a role and a functioning niche in any community is present in this microclimate understanding. The work of regenerative ag is the work of community function. Right, and so out of witnessing that in the natural world, Morgan and I, we started to realize that if regenerative agriculture, right, is pushing for these same characteristics, these same philosophies, right, we're not pushing for carbon sequestration, we're pushing for a world where we have clean water and where my children have air to breathe 50 years from now. That's the vision, right? And so in order for that to work, we have to understand the microclimate, the local communities, and we have to work there and emerge from there. Otherwise said, we work with the souls of communities. And then and only then can we progress to the soils of communities.